In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war. On the beleaguered fortress world of Hydrus Prime, the valiant soldiers of the Astra Militarum faced their doom. Billions upon billions of Tyranids, a great devouring maw from the void, descended upon their world. Lasgon fire stitched the air. Artillery shells turned the sky to fire. But for every Xenos monstrosity slain, 10 more swarmed over the razor wire and trenches. The hive mind's shadow fell, and all hope was extinguished. Then, a new star blazed in the heavens. It was not the holy light of an Imperial vessel, nor the malevolent glare of a Chaos warship. It was a single, brilliant streak of gold and crimson, tearing through the spore-choked clouds. It struck the battlefield with the force of an orbital bombardment, carving a crater miles wide and vaporizing a tide of hormagaunts in a flash of incandescent light. The ground shook, the very air crackled with an unknown energy, and for a fleeting moment, the ceaseless chittering of the swarm fell silent. From the heart of the crater, a figure rose. He was not clad in the blessed ceramite of a space marine, nor the flak armor of the Imperial Guard. He wore a simple suit of impossible blue, a flowing red cape, and a symbol emblazoned on his chest, a symbol that was not the Imperial Aquila. The men and women of Hydrus Prime stared, their faith and their sanity stretched to the breaking point. Was this an angel of the Emperor? A demon? A new, unforeseen breed of Xenos? He moved. It was not a run, nor a charge. It was a blur of motion that defied the senses, a Carnifex. A living battering ram of chitin and blade roared as it charged the newcomer. The being simply raised a hand, catching the beast's scythed talons as if they were made of parchment. With a casual flick of his wrist, he tossed the multi-ton creature through the air, sending it crashing into a wave of its own kin. The swarm, acting as one, turned its full attention to this new, singular threat. Gaunt's spot bioacid that sizzled and evaporated harmlessly against his skin. A trigon erupted from beneath the earth, its massive claws swiping, only to shatter against an unbreakable form. The being's eyes then began to glow, 2 points of intense, crimson heat. Beams of pure energy lanced out, scything through the Tyranid ranks with horrifying precision. They bisected warriors, incinerated gargoyles in mid-flight, and boiled the ichor within the monster's body. He wasn't fighting like a soldier. He was a force of nature, a cataclysm given form. He moved through the swarm like a whirlwind of destruction, his fists striking with the force of macro-cannon shells. The very ground buckled under his blows. He tore the wings from hive tyrants, wrestled zoanthropes from the sky, and held his ground against a living tide that had consumed entire star systems. He showed no fatigue, no fear, only a grim, unwavering resolve. To the beleaguered defenders of Hydrus Prime, he was a miracle. Prayers of deliverance, once choked with despair, now rang out with renewed fervor. The Camisas watched, their minds struggling to reconcile this impossible event with the Imperial Creed. How could a single being, seemingly human in shape, possess such power? He was not a Primarch, not a living saint of legend. He was something else entirely, something new. As the last of the Tyranid ground forces were shattered against his invulnerable might, the hive mind, in a desperate, final gambit, threw its Norn emissary into the fray. The pinnacle of Tyranid evolution, a being of immense psychic and physical power, descended to eliminate this anomaly. The two collided in a battle that tore the landscape asunder. Psychic lightning warred with heat vision, and claws that could shred adamantium met fists that could shatter planets. 4 hours, the duel raged, a contest between the ultimate predator and an impossible defender. Finally, with a cry that echoed across the plains, the being grabbed the Norn emissary, flew high into the upper atmosphere, and hurled the monstrosity directly into Hydra Star. The resulting flare was visible even in the daytime, a final, definitive period on the invasion. He descended slowly, landing gently amidst the ruins and the shell-shocked survivors. He stood before the ranking Imperial officers, his expression not of triumph, but of somber duty. A Lord General, trembling, found his voice in the Emperor's name. are you? Though being looked at the ravaged world, at the millions of dead, and his voice, though calm, carried a weight that seemed to span galaxies. My name is Khalil, he said. I am from a world called Krypton. His arrival sent shockwaves far beyond Hydrus Prime. The news traveled on astropathic whispers and coded databirds. On Holy Terra, the High Lords convened in shadow. To the Inquisition, he was a potential threat of existential scale, an unregistered psyker of unimaginable power, or worse, a Xenos masquerading in human form. The Ordo Xenos sharpened their blades, while the Ordo Hereticus prepared their pyres. Could such power exist without a demonic pact? Is he a threat to the master of mankind's divinity? The Adeptus Mechanicus, however, saw something else. They saw a biological and technological marvel, a being whose physiology defied all known laws of nature. The secrets held within his cells could be the key to creating the ultimate soldier, a prize beyond any STC fragment. And across the galaxy, other, darker powers took notice. A new, powerful piece had been placed on the board, and everyone, from the Lords of Chaos to the inscrutable Eldar, began to calculate how to use him, or how to destroy him. He came not as a god, but as a weapon that refused to serve any master but his own conscience. The man who fell to Hydrus Prime was not just a savior. He was a crisis of faith for an entire galaxy. He was a heresy in human shape, an angel to the desperate, and a terrifying unknown to the powerful. In the 41st millennium, a new legend has begun, not of a god-emperor, but of a strange visitor from another world. The age of the Superman has dawned upon a galaxy that knows only war. What do you think will happen next? How will the Imperium react to this being who can shatter their enemies, but defies their dogma? This is a massive what-if scenario, and I'd love to explore it further with all of you. The Tyranid swarm descended upon Ethelgard, a tide of chitin and hunger that crashed against the planet's defenses with unending fury. Lasgon fire, bright and defiant, stitched patterns of light against the encroaching darkness. But for every Xenos beast that fell, 10 more swarmed over its corpse. The air, thick with the smell of ozone and alienite, carried the screams of the dying and the cacophony of a world in its death throes. Hope, a currency more precious than promethium, was dwindling with every passing hour. The Imperial Guard fought with the grim determination of the doomed, their faith in the God Emperor, the last bastion against total despair. But then, a new light blazed in the smoke-choked sky. It was not the flash of an orbital bombardment or the bloom of an exploding lemongrass. It was a streak of crimson and blue, a herald of impossible speed and strength. From the heavens, he descended, a figure of myth made manifest, landing amidst the guardsmen with the force of a thunderclap, yet causing no harm. He was a being of perfect human form, clad in colors that spoke not of grim darkness, but of vibrant, unwavering hope. The men and women of the Cadian, 81st, could only stare, their trigger fingers frozen, as this unknown entity turned to face the tide. He moved faster than an Aldari, struck harder than an Ogrin. Beams of pure, incandescent energy, hotter than any erupted from his eyes, vaporizing hormagaunts and scything through the ranks of He shattered the armored carapace of a Carnifex with his bare hands, tearing the monstrous war beast asunder as if it were parchment. He was a whirlwind of destruction, a one-man army against a legion of horrors. The guardsmen, stunned into silence, watched as he single-handedly stemmed the tide that had threatened to overwhelm them. He fought with a ferocity they had only ever ascribed to the Primarchs of legend. On the command balcony of the governor's spire, Titus Tullius watched the picked feeds, with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Every strategic model had predicted Ethelgard's fall within the next cycle. His pleas for reinforcements had been met with silence, the warp storms isolating them, leaving them to their fate. "It's a miracle," he whispered, his voice trembling. "The Emperor has answered our prayers. He has sent us a savior, an avenging angel to deliver us from the great devourer." To Tullius and the beleaguered populace, this being, this Khalil as the pick captures were now labeling him, was nothing short of divine intervention. Deliverance had a name, and it flew on a red cape. But not all saw a savior. From the shadows of the spire, another pair of eyes watched the same feeds, but with a cold, analytical dread. Inquisitor Cryptomon Varen, of the Ordo Xenos, saw not an angel, but an anomaly of the most dangerous kind. Power of that magnitude, untethered to the holy light of the Emperor, or the arcane machinery of the Mechanicus, was anathema. It moves like a man, but its strength is that of a demon. Varen hissed to his acolyte. It bleeds energy that defies our understanding. It is not human. It is not of the Imperium. It is Asenos, a genetic aberration of unknown origin, and its presence here is a greater threat than the Hive Fleet. The core of Varen's suspicion was simple and damning. The being fought with the power of a demigod. It displayed none of the righteous fury or pious zeal expected of the Emperor's faithful. He showed no reverence, uttered no prayers, and wore no symbols of the imperial creed. He was a weapon, yes, but a weapon without a master, a power without a faith. In the rigid dogma of the Imperium, such a thing could not be a blessing. It could only be a curse in disguise, a lure from the ruinous powers, or a vanguard for an invasion far more subtle than the Tyranids. The conflict was stark. On the blood-soaked battlefields, soldiers began to call him the Red and Blue Angel. They cheered as he flew overhead, a symbol of hope that rallied their broken spirits. They saw him shield a group of civilians with his own body, weathering a storm of bioplasma that would have melted ceramite, and emerge unscathed. They saw him lift a fallen chimera, allowing the trapped infantry squad to escape. To these men and women, he was the living embodiment of the Emperor's protection. His actions spoke louder than any sermon from a minister and priest. Yet, in the hallowed halls of the Administratum, and the shadowed cloisters of the Inquisition, fear and suspicion festered. Varen dispatched his agents, not to aid the new savior, but to study him, to find a weakness. Astropaths attempted to breach his mind, only to be met with a serene, impenetrable wall of will. Tech priests tried to analyze his energy signature, their cogitators screaming in protest at data that violated known physical laws. He was a puzzle that the Imperium could not solve, and what the Imperium cannot understand, it inevitably seeks to destroy. Kal-El, for his part, was oblivious to the political storm brewing in his wake. His focus was singular. Protect the innocent. He heard every cry for help, saw every family in peril. He fought with a measured restraint, using only the force necessary, a concept utterly alien to the brutal calculus of 41st millennium warfare. He did not revel in the destruction. He mourned the necessity of it. He was a guardian, not a conqueror, a shepherd trying to protect his flock from a relentless pack of wolves. The siege of Ethelgard had become a crucible, not just for the planet, but for the very soul of the Imperium. Could it accept a miracle it could not explain? Could it trust a power it could not control? Governor Tellius prepared to hold a planet-wide broadcast, to officially hail Khalil as the planet's champion. Inquisitor Varen, meanwhile, prepared his own contingency, requisitioning forbidden archaeotech, and sending a coded message to the only authority he trusted to handle such a dire threat. The Grey Knights, the savior of Ethelgard, was now a target. The being who fought like a god but did not pray was about to discover that the monsters he fought were not the only threat in this dark, unforgiving galaxy. The greatest danger might just come from those he was trying to save. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter in our epic crossover. The stage is set for a massive clash of ideologies, and Khalil is caught right in the middle. What happens when the Imperium's most zealous warriors turn their attention to him? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you're enjoying this saga, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next explosive chapter. Hello, and welcome back, lore masters and grimdark enthusiasts. We've journeyed through the explosive arrival of the last son of Cryptum, and witnessed his first world-shattering encounter with the Imperium. But the shockwaves from his actions are only just beginning to ripple across the galaxy. Today, we delve into Chapter 3, The Shadow of Faith. The initial reports from the front lines were fragmented, chaotic. Astartes saved from certain death. Orcs obliterated by a crimson and blue blur, a being of impossible power who fought for humanity. But as these fragmented reports coalesced within the monolithic data stacks of the administration, a new and far more dangerous crisis began to brew. The question that had been whispered in hushed tones by terrified guardsmen and bewildered space marines now thundered from the highest pulpits of the ecclesiarchy. If he is not of the Emperor, then whose is he? This wasn't a question of allegiance. It was a question of existence itself. The Imperium's entire belief system, the very bedrock of its society for 10,000 years, rests on a singular, brutal truth. There is only the Emperor. He is the master of mankind, the sole divine entity worthy of worship. All other gods are demons. All other prophets are heretics. And yet, here was a being who descended from the heavens, wielding power that rivaled who bled for humanity but bore no Aquila, who spoke of hope and truth, but not of the Emperor. For the Ministorum, this was an existential threat, a theological bomb detonated in the heart of the imperial creed. Across countless shrine worlds and hive cities, cardinals and confessors took to their pulpits, their voices amplified by voxcasters to reach billions. Their sermons, once filled with predictable praise for the god Impara, now crackled with a new, desperate fervor. They denounced this Kal-El as a deceiver, a false idol, sent by the ruinous powers to test the faithful. They painted him as an abomination, a trick of the great enemy, a lie clad in the guise of a savior. Do not be swayed by parlor tricks. One cardinal bellowed to a congregation of 100 million on Holy Terra itself. His strength is a falsehood. His compassion, a poison. He is a test of your faith, and to falter is to invite damnation for your immortal soul. But faith is a strange and volatile thing in the 41st millennium. For untold generations, the common citizen of the Imperium has prayed for a savior, for an angel to descend from the heavens and deliver them from the unending horror of their existence. They prayed to the Emperor, yes, but they also prayed for a sign, for a miracle they could see with their own eyes. And then he appeared. In the stinking underhives in the war-torn frontier worlds, where the sermons of distant cardinals felt hollow, a new and powerful belief began to take root. They had seen the picked captures, heard the smuggled Vox transmissions. They saw a being who could stop a Titan with his bare hands, whose eyes could melt the armor of a Chaos Marine, who flew through the skies like the angels in their catechisms. The ecclesiarchy's condemnations fell on deaf ears. For millions, then billions. He wasn't a falsehood. He was the answer to their prayers. They gave him a name, one whispered in secret gatherings and scrawled on the walls of manufactorums. The Starborn Angel. This was no mere cult. It was a wildfire of heresies spreading faster than any plague. On agri-worlds, farmers began carving his sigil, that strange, serpentine S, into their fields alongside the imperial Aquila. In penal legions, condemned soldiers tattooed the symbol onto their flesh, believing it a ward against death. An NTR subsector, reeling from a tyrannid invasion that Khalili had single-handedly repelled, declared a day of holy veneration in his name. They saw his strength not as a trick, but as a divine gift. They saw his compassion not as a poison, but as the very embodiment of the Emperor's protection made manifest. He was the saint they could see, the angel who bled for them in real time. The imperial creed was fracturing, and when the creed fractures, the Inquisition listens. Deep within fortified fortresses and hidden chambers, the various orders of the Holy Inquisition turned their unblinking gaze towards this new phenomenon. For the Ordo Hereticus, the Starborn Angel cult was a heresy of the highest order, a cancer eating at the soul of the Imperium. Agents were dispatched, not just to observe, but to contain. Inquisitors in black power armor, accompanied by squads of elite Tempesticians and Sisters of Battle, descended upon worlds where the cult was strongest. Their methods were, as always, brutally efficient. Public recantations were forced at gunpoint. Entire congregations were purged with bolter and flamer. The symbol of the S became a mark of execution. But for every cultist they burned, 10 more seemed to rise from the ashes, their faith hardened by persecution. They were not just fighting a belief. They were fighting hope. For the Order Xenos, Kal-El was a different kind of problem. He was an alien, an unclassified biological entity of immense power. Was he the last of his kind, as some reports suggested? Or was he the vanguard of an invasion? A reconnaissance agent for a species whose power could eclipse the Imperium itself? Field agents and Death Watch kill teams were put on high alert, their mission to capture, or, if necessary, eliminate the specimen. They began studying the physics of his flight, the energy signature of his heat vision, desperately trying to find a weakness, a chink in the armor of this living god. They saw him not as a religious figure, but as the ultimate biological weapon, one that could either be turned to the Imperium's service, or must be utterly destroyed. And then there was the Ordo Malleus, the demon hunters. They who stared into the abyss. They were less concerned with the man himself, and more with the resonance he was creating in the warp. The sheer emotional energy being directed at him, the hope, the adoration, the faith of trillions, was a psychic beacon. It was a storm of positive emotion so potent that it was changing the very texture of the image, and such a storm does not go unnoticed. In the swirling madness of the Eye of Terror, the dark god stirred. For millennia, they had fed on the galaxy's pain, fear, and despair. But this new sensation, this tidal wave of pure, unadulterated hope, it was anathema to them. It was a frequency they could not corrupt, a light that burned their senses. Yet, within it, they sensed opportunity. The changer of ways, the master of plots, whispered Khalil's name to his followers, twisting the narrative. Was he not the ultimate symbol of change? Of breaking old orders? The Lord of Excess saw in him a figure of perfect beauty and adoration, a new obsession for his followers to covet and corrupt. The blood god cared little for the subtlety, but the sheer power on display was an irresistible challenge, a skull worthy of any throne. And Gorkenmork, well, they just thought he looked like a right good scrap. Most chillingly, Chaos began to whisper his name. Not in price, but in recognition. Cultists and sorcerers, their minds open to the whispers from the warp, heard it. They heard the demons recoil from his presence. They felt the warp calm in systems he passed through. The name Khalil became a curse on their lips, an omen. The Inquisition's own psychers, tasked with divining the future, reported terrifying visions. They saw futures where the Starborn Angel led humanity into a new golden age, free of the Emperor's light. They saw other, darker timelines, where his hope curdled into despair, where his fall would drag the entire galaxy into an age of unprecedented darkness. The tarot readings were a maelstrom of contradiction. The Angel of Hope, the Emperor's shadow, the doom of worlds. The Inquisition was now faced with an impossible choice. To destroy Khalil would be to extinguish a weapon of immense value and risk martyring him, turning his cult into a truly unstoppable force. To try and control him seemed impossible. How do you leash a god? To leave him be was to allow the heresy to fester and to let this unknown psychic variable continue to destabilize the very fabric of reality. The Imperium, a regime built on absolute certainty, was now paralyzed by the ultimate unknown. Kal-El, the man of tomorrow, had become the Imperium's gravest crisis. He was a symbol of everything they fought against, and yet he was also the embodiment of everything their people prayed for. The shadow he cast was not one of darkness, but of blinding light, light of faith, twisted and refracted into 1,000 different heresies. And in the grim darkness of the far future, such a light might be the most dangerous thing of all. What will the Inquisition decide? How can the Imperium survive a crisis of its own soul? We'll explore that and more next time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the lore, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell. Let us know in the comments what you think the Inquisition's next move should be. Until next time, may the Emperor protect. Welcome bike lore masters and universe hoppers. Today, we plunge back into the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where a Kryptonian has just made his explosive entrance. But his arrival did not go unnoticed. In the swirling, psychic chaos of the Imperium, something new has appeared. A light. Imagine the warp. A roiling sea of raw emotion, nightmares, and pure psychic energy. For untold millennia, it has been the domain of the ruinous powers, a canvas for their eternal, spiteful games. Now, a foreign star ignites within its depths. Kal-El's very essence, his biological aura fueled by a yellow sun, is more than just physical energy. It is a beacon of hope, order, and inherent goodness anathema to the very nature of chaos. This light doesn't just shine, it sings. It sings a song of integrity, of unwavering spirit, a melody completely alien to the cacophony of rage, despair, and deceit that defines the warp. To the countless demonic entities adrift in this hellscape, it is both repellent and intoxicating. It's a paradox, a purity so intense it burns, yet a power so immense it promises untold potential. They feel something that doesn't belong, something luminous and defiant. It's a soul untouched by the cynicism and corruption of the galaxy, a concept almost forgotten in this age of darkness. And the great powers themselves, from their thrones of skulls and their labyrinthine gardens, take notice. Khorne, the blood god, might see this incredible strength and invulnerability not as a gift, but as a challenge, a being that cannot be easily broken or made to bleed. What a glorious challenge that would be. Imagine the skulls he could take, the blood he could spill. By finally bringing this paragon of strength to his knees, he would see not a hero, but the ultimate warrior to be corrupted or destroyed. Nurgle, the grandfather of pestilence, would look upon Kal-El's perfect, unblemished form with a twisted sense of paternal love, a being immune to disease, a body that rejects decay. To Nurgle, this is a beautiful, empty canvas, waiting for his blessed touch. He would yearn to gift Kal-El his plagues, to watch this vibrant life wither and then blossom anew into a glorious cycle of decay and rebirth. A new champion to spread his generous contagions across the stars. Slaanesh, the prince of pleasure and pain, would be utterly captivated. This Kryptonian's absolute self-control, his unwavering moral compass, his sheer perfectionates. The ultimate temptation to break that will, to introduce him to sensations beyond his wildest dreams, to twist his desire to protect into a desire for excess. ... Oh, the ecstasy in that fall from grace would be a symphony of sensation unlike any other. He is the ultimate, unattainable prize, and the pursuit of his corruption would be the grandest of pleasures. But it is perhaps Tzeentch, the changer of ways, the architect of fate, who sees the most potential. Here is a being of immense power, a fixed point of hope and order in a galaxy of variables. What a delightful piece to add to the grand, cosmic chess game. He is a catalyst, an agent of unpredictable change. Tzeentch doesn't necessarily want to destroy him. Not at first. He wants to manipulate him, to twist his good intentions, to turn his hope into a tool for greater and more elaborate schemes. A pawn that thinks it's a king is the most useful piece of all. Kal-El's every action, every attempt to save and protect could be subtly guided to bring about a new, unforeseen era of strife and chaos, all according to the Great Deceiver's plan. The Eye of Terror, the gaping wound in reality, has always watched the galaxy with malevolent intent, but now its gaze is focused. The ruinous powers see Kal-El as both the greatest threat to their dominion and the most coveted prize imaginable, a weapon, a symbol, a champion, a plaything. The race to claim him has begun, and so the first to answer the call are the traitor legions, the Chaos Space Marines. From the blasted hell worlds within the Eye of Terror, they emerge. These are the Astartes who turned their backs on the Emperor 10,000 years ago, angels who fell and embraced damnation. They are clad in ceramite, armor warped by demonic energies, their bodies twisted by the gifts of their dark patrons. They are bitterness and hatred given form, armed with bolters that fire explosive rounds and chain swords that scream with mechanical fury. A strike cruiser, a vessel of jagged metal and weeping orifices, tears a hole in real space above the planet where Kal-El now stands. Its hull is adorned with the profane symbols of the ruinous powers. The ship's arrival is a violation, a psychic scream that causes the very air to curdle. Down on the surface, the sky darkens, and the first drop pods are launched. They are iron coffins, screaming through the atmosphere like meteors of pure malice, each one carrying a squad of demigods sworn to eternal war. These are not mindless berserkers. These are the veterans of the long war, tactical geniuses who have honed their skills over millennia of constant warfare. They know how to break worlds, how to topple empires, and how to corrupt heroes. They have studied the weaknesses of the Imperium for ages, and now they face something new. They are the instruments of the gods, the first wave sent to test, to capture, and to corrupt the strange visitor. Their orders are clear. Bring this anomaly to heel, break his body, shatter his mind, and drag his soul back to the Eye of Terror as a trophy for their dark masters. As the first drop pod slams into the earth, shaking the ground for miles, the ramp crashes down. Out steps Achaea's lord, his armor a mosaic of ancient legion colors and fresh, gory trophies. He raises his demonic axe, its blade humming with imprisoned spirits, and surveys this new, vibrant world with cold, ancient eyes. He is here to claim it, and to claim the being of impossible power that now calls it home. The first battle for the soul of the Man of Steel is about to begin. What do you think will happen when the unyielding force of a Chaos Space Marine meets the immovable object that is Superman? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a clash of titans we've never seen before. Thanks so much for watching, and if you're enjoying this cosmic collision, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. The skies of Hydrus Prime bleed red, a crimson stain not from one sun or two, but from the raw, seething energy of the warp tearing reality asunder. This is the stage for a battle unlike any the 41st millennium has ever witnessed. A being of impossible hope against the very embodiment of despair and rage. Kal-El, the last son of Kryptonk, hovers amidst the tainted clouds, his blue and red suit a stark contrast to the hellscape below. Before him, the ground churns with the legions of chaos. The blood-red armor of Khornes, berserkers gleams under the malevolent sky, their Chanaxes roaring with an insatiable hunger for skulls. They are a tide of pure, unthinking violence, their every step a prayer to the blood god. Their war cries are a cacophony of rage, echoing across the blasted plains. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. They surge forward, a living wave of hatred, their only purpose to kill, to maim, to offer up the life of the strange sky god to their patron. But this is not a one-sided assault. Weaving through the ranks of the Khorne Warband are the shimmering, ever-changing forms of the servants of Tazeen, the Thousand Suns, encased in their ornate ceramite armor. Advance with unnatural silence. Their bolters are aimed not with simple malice, but with a cold, calculating intellect. Sorcerers chant in forbidden tongues, their hands crackling with multicolored fire, the very air warping and twisting around them. Pink and blue horrors giggle and shriek as they caper and bound, unleashing bolts of pure change that defy the laws of physics. For them, this isn't just a battle. It's a grand experiment, a complex equation of fate and power they are eager to solve. Superman descends, a silent meteor of purpose. He lands, not with a thunderous crash, but with a quiet solidity that ripples the very ground beneath him. He stands as a lone bastion against the twin tides of rage and deceit. The first wave of berserkers reaches him, a champion, twice the size of a mortal man, swings a gore-drenched axe and a devastating arc. The blow, which could cleave a battle tank in two, connects with Superman's outstretched palm. There is no clang of metal, only a dull, final thud. The axe, a relic of countless massacres, simply shatters. The berserker stares, its mind so consumed by rage, unable to process the impossibility it has just witnessed. Before the shock can register, Kal-El moves. He is not a whirlwind of destruction like them. He is a force of precision. He disarms, he shoves, he deflects. A single push sends a dozen berserkers tumbling like bowling pins. He catches a volley of bolter fire in midair, the explosive rounds detonating harmlessly against his palms. He moves through the red tide not as a warrior, but as a force of nature, an immovable object meeting a supposedly unstoppable force. His strength is absolute, but he does not kill. He incapacitates. He neutralizes the threat, his core programming of preservation warring with the grim necessity of this universe. From the back ranks, the Tsinjen sorcerers unleash their arcane might, a bolt of pure warp energy, a screaming vortex of purple and blue flame, streaks towards This is not a physical attack. It is an assault on the soul, a weapon designed to unravel the very fabric of a being. Superman meets it head-on, his heat vision, a concentrated beam of pure solar energy, lances out. The two energies collide, and for a moment, the battlefield is silenced. The raw power of a yellow sun against the chaotic sorcery of the Changer of Ways. The warp fire sputters, it contorts, it fights, but it cannot overcome the clean, unrelenting power of the starborn hero. The spell dissolves into harmless, glittering dust, but the followers of Tsinjen are not so easily deterred. Their greatest weapon isn't raw power, it's the mind. As Superman contends with the physical onslaught, the whispers begin. They are not sounds that travel through the air, but insidious thoughts planted directly into his mind. They slither past his mental fortitude, finding the smallest cracks in his resolve. Why do you hold back? A sibilant voice, sounding like grinding glass and broken promises, echoes in his consciousness. These creatures are irredeemable. They live only to destroy. Your compassion is a flaw, a weakness. He shatters the chainsword of another berserker, his jaw tight. He ignores the voice. Think of the lives they have taken. It continues, showing him flashes of burning cities, of screaming innocents across 1,000 worlds. Every moment you hesitate, another world burns. Your restraint is their victory. You have the power to end this, to end them, utterly. A rubric marine unleashes a torrent of inferno bolts. Superman shields a cowering group of planetary militia with his own body, the shells exploding against his back, their concussive force barely making him flinch. He is their shield. He is their hope. The whisper changes its tone, becoming softer, more reasonable, like a trusted friend. You see, you protect the weak. But what if the greatest act of protection was to eliminate the strong, to purge the galaxy of this sickness? Once and for all, Korn respects strength. Show him yours. Tsinjen respects power. Unleash it. You could be a god here. Not a symbol. A true god. They would worship you. Khalil throws a wrecked rhino tank into the path of a charging demon prince of Korn. The hulking beast, roaring in frustration as it's forced to halt. His mind is a fortress, built on the values of Smallville, on the love of his parents, on a lifetime of choosing right over easy. But this fortress is under a siege it was never designed to withstand. The corruption of the warp is a subtle poison. It doesn't just attack, it tempts. It twists virtue into vice. His compassion, his greatest strength, is being reframed as a fatal flaw. His refusal to kill, the bedrock of his morality, is presented as an act of cosmic negligence. He sees Lois, her face etched with worry. He sees his father, Jonathan, telling him he is here for a reason. But their images flicker, distorted by the malefic energy of this place. A powerful psyker, a Lord of Change's favored servant, focuses its will. It doesn't just whisper. It screams into Superman's soul. It shows him a future born of his restraint. A galaxy drowning in blood and madness, whereas every effort to save a few resulted in the damnation of billions. It shows him a Krypton that wasn't destroyed by natural cataclysm, but was consumed by a similar chaotic force because its guardians were too slow, too merciful. Lies woven with threads of truth, the most dangerous deception of all. For a fleeting second, under the crimson sky, surrounded by demon fire and the screams of the damned, Khalil's eyes glow with a frightening intensity. The heat within him builds, not just from the solar radiation in his cells, but from a burgeoning frustration. A flicker of rage. The whispers intensify, sensing a crack in the armor of his will. Yes, let go. Be what they fear. be their end. The battle for Hydrus Prime is no longer just a physical confrontation. It has become a war for the soul of Superman. As he stands amidst the carnage, the greatest threat isn't the axe-wielding maniacs or the reality-bending sorcerers. It's the insidious suggestion that to defeat monsters, he must become one himself. And in the grim darkness of the far future, that is a temptation that has broken gods, primarchs, and entire civilizations. Even a man of steel is not immune to the insidious promises of chaos. The red sky watches and waits. Thank you so much for joining us for this chapter in our epic crossover. What do you think? Can Superman's will hold against the corrupting influence of the Chaos Gods? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this series, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more. We'll see ya in the next one. They call him the last son of Krypton, a being of impossible power, a symbol of hope from a world long dead. But in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, hope is the first step on the road to heresy. Captured, not by the endless hordes of orcs or the insidious whispers of chaos, but by the very institution meant to protect humanity. The Emperor's Holy Inquisition, Kal-El, the man they call Superman, finds himself in a place far colder than the void of space, a psychic interrogation chamber, a crucible designed to shatter minds and souls. Before him stands Inquisitor Varun, a man whose faith is as unyielding as the adamantium walls around them. Varun sees not a savior, but an anomaly, an unsanctioned psyker of unimaginable strength, an alien whose very existence is an affront to the established order of the Imperium of man. He will not kneel. Varun's acolyte whispers, awe and terror, mingling in his voice, not even to the Emperor's Inquisition. And it's true, they brought their most powerful psychers, their most forbidden arts of mental intrusion. They unleashed demonic whispers and mind-scouring projections, attempting to break the alien's will, to find the taint of chaos they were so certain lay within. But Kal-El's mind, it was something else. Entirely, not fortified by faith in the God Emperor, not shielded by psychic wards, but inherently incorruptible, like trying to burn the sun with a candle. His mind, a symphony of logic and compassion forged under a yellow star, was a fortress they could not breach. The whispers of demons found no purchase, no dark desires to latch onto. The psychic battering rams shattered against a will tempered not by fanaticism, but by a profound, unwavering belief in the good of others. For the first time, Inquisitor Varun faced a being his tools could not measure and his dogma could not explain. He wasn't resisting. He simply ... was. But as the Inquisition's assault on his mind raged, Kal-El was not merely a passive defender. He saw through their eyes, felt their fear, their paranoia. He witnessed the psychic echoes of their interrogations, the shattered minds of countless heretics, many of whom were guilty of nothing more than thinking a forbidden thought or being born with an unsanctioned gift. He saw the Imperium not as a glorious empire, but as a civilization backed into a corner, fighting for survival with cruelty as its primary weapon. He saw the faces of astropaths, their bodies ravaged by the soul-binding ritual, their minds forever screaming in the silent choir of the Emperor. He felt the terror of sanctioned psychers, living in constant fear of possession or summary execution. He saw worlds put to the torch, not for rebellion, but for the mere suspicion of taint. And in this brutal panorama of sanctioned atrocities, a terrible understanding began to dawn. This cruelty wasn't random. It wasn't born of simple malice. It was a calculated, desperate cost. The cost of holding back a galaxy that wanted nothing more than to consume humanity. He saw the shimmering veil of the warp, the true horrors that lurked just beyond reality. And for a fleeting moment, he understood the Inquisition's terror. They weren't just torturing people. They were cauterizing a wound to stop a galactic infection from spreading. In the sterile darkness of his cell, chained by faith and steel, Kal-El's perception of the universe was irrevocably altered. He had always fought for truth and justice. But what is justice in a galaxy where survival demands such a horrifying price? His defiance had proven his own incorruptibility, but it had also revealed the soul-crushing reality of the Imperium. The interrogators retreated, their minds reeling from the sheer purity of their captive. Inquisitor Varen stood alone before the Kryptonian, his certainty shaken for the first time in centuries. He had found no heresy, no taint of chaos. He had found something far more dangerous, an ideal, a power untethered to the Imperial creed, a strength that didn't come from faith in the master of mankind. What do you do with a being you cannot break, cannot corrupt, and cannot comprehend? A being whose very existence challenges the foundational beliefs of your entire civilization. For Kal-El, the trial of faith was just beginning. He had resisted the Inquisition's power, but now he faced a far greater challenge. Understanding his place in a universe where the line between hero and heretic, savior and threat, was written in blood and faith. The Imperium had shown him its darkness, and in doing so, had forced him to question the very nature of his own light. This chapter of Superman's journey in the 41st millennium is truly fascinating, exploring the collision of two completely opposite ideologies. What do you think happens next? Can the Imperium ever accept a being like Superman? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this dive into the lore, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next part of this incredible story. They were once his kin, now they are his executioners. This single, chilling line perfectly encapsulates our dive today into a dark and thrilling crossover concept. What if the last son of Krypton wasn't the only one to escape its cataclysmic end? What if others survived, but at a terrible, soul-crushing cost? Forget everything you know about the House of El. Today, we venture into a grim darkness where steel and flesh have become one, and a familiar red and blue symbol becomes a beacon for assimilation. Across a silent, cold expanse of the void, ancient signals, dormant for decades, suddenly flicker to life. They are Kryptonian, but twisted, corrupted. These aren't distress calls or echoes of a lost civilization. They are hunting signals, a vast spacefaring armada, a grotesque fusion of organic Kryptonian technology and cold, hard, unforgiving machinery awakens from its slumber. Their senses have locked onto a unique, impossibly powerful energy signature. Pure, unadulterated Kryptonian biosignal originating from a small, blue planet in a forgotten sector of the galaxy. This is the home of Superman. The source of this signal is a faction known as the Collectorate. Imagine this: a group of Kryptonian survivors who, faced with the agonizing death of their world, made a pact with forces they could barely comprehend. To survive, they abandoned the purity of their flesh, embracing the cold, logical certainty of cybernetic augmentation. They are no longer simply Kryptonians. They are a machine empire, a collective consciousness, driven by a single, terrifying directive: to preserve and perfect all remaining Kryptonian life by integrating it into their network. They see flesh as a weakness, an imperfection, a relic of the failure that led to their planet's doom. Their philosophy is a terrifying mirror of the machine cults we see in universes like Warhammer 40,000. The flesh is fallible. The machine is eternal. To them, Kal-El isn't a long-lost brother. He is the ultimate prize. He is the last pure-blooded Kryptonian, a biological and genetic treasure trove. His existence outside their collective is an anomaly, a heresy that must be corrected. Their mission is not one of rescue or reunion. It is reclamation. They are coming to Earth, not to say hello, but to harvest. Third leader, let's call him Prime Executor. Borle was once a member of Krypton's Science Council, a colleague of Jor-El. He watched his world burn and saw Jor-El's faith in natural life as a fatal flaw. In his grief, he led his followers down a path of radical transformation, replacing organs with reactors, minds with processors, and compassion with cold, calculated logic. When Ver looks at Superman, he doesn't see a hero. He sees the original specimen, the key to their final evolutionary leap. Assimilating Kal-El would mean integrating his unparalleled solar energy absorption capabilities into their entire network, making the Collectorate an unstoppable force. The initial contact wouldn't be a grand invasion fleet, blotting out the sun. It would be subtle, insidious. Strange technological plagues would sweep through Metropolis, targeting star labs, Wayne Enterprise is only where advanced technology resides. These aren't random attacks. They are probes, data-gathering incursions, designed to test Earth's defenses and analyze this strange new world. Superman would be baffled, facing tech that seems to learn and adapt to his every move, almost as if it anticipates his Kryptonian physiology. These initial skirmishes are merely the Collectorate's scalpels, dissecting Earth's capabilities before the main force arrives. The true horror begins when the first Collectorate foot soldiers make planet. They would look like nightmares born from a Kryptonian forge. Their bodies are hulking frames of dark metal and cable, with remnants of Kryptonian armor fused directly to their flesh. Where a face should be, there's a cold, multi-lensed optic, glowing with an eerie red light. They possess Kryptonian strength, but it's augmented, relentless, and unburdened by emotion or fatigue. They fight not with heat vision born of passion, but with focused, plasma beams calculated for maximum efficiency. Imagine the scene. Superman confronts one of these beings, expecting a straightforward fight. He lands a punch that could level a mountain, only to see the cybernetic creature's internal systems instantly reroute power, reinforcing the impact zone. It analyzes his fighting style, calculates his speed, and adapts in real time. Then, it speaks, its voice a synthesized chorus of 1,000 Kryptonian souls trapped in the machine. Ceased resistance. Specimen color. Your biological form is inefficient. You will be perfected. You will be preserved. Join the Unity. For Superman, this is a psychological war, unlike any he has ever faced. These aren't alien invaders or human villains. They are what's left of his people. Every blow he lands is against a twisted echo of his own heritage. He can hear the faint whispers of their original Kryptonian consciousness trapped within the machine. He's fighting ghosts. Ghosts in literal shells. Can he bring himself to destroy the last remnants of his race, even if they are monstrous? This conflict strikes at the very core of his identity. He has always been the last son of Krypton, a title that carried both pride and sorrow. Now, he's forced to become its executioner. The Collectorate doesn't seek to destroy Earth. They see it as a primitive but resource-rich incubator for their prize. They want Kal-El, and they will methodically dismantle anything that stands in their way. Their tactics are brutal and efficient. They would target Superman's connections, not out of malice, but pure strategy. Why engage this specimen directly when you can neutralize his support structures? They'd see the Justice League not as heroes, but as organic variables to be eliminated. They would see Lois Lane not as a person, but as a psychological anchor point, a vulnerability to be exploited or removed. The climax wouldn't be a simple brawl. It would be a battle for Superman's very soul. The Collectorate would deploy their ultimate weapon, the Assimilation Spire. A monstrous tower that begins to terraform, or rather, technoform the Earth, converting matter into the same cybernetic material as their body. At its heart, a chamber designed to hold Kal-El, to strip him of his individuality and hardwire him into their collective. The final fight would be Superman, battered and emotionally broken, having to push past his own limits to destroy the last nightmarish vestiges of his people to save his adopted home. Think of the tragedy in that victory. He saves Earth, but in doing so, he ensures he truly is, and forever will be, the last son of Krypton. The silence after the Collectorate's defeat would be heavier than any explosion. He would be alone again, but this time by his own hand. This is the kind of story that tests a hero, not just physically, but existentially. It forces him to confront the darkest possible what-if scenario of his own origin story. What if survival was a curse far worse than extinction? This dark fusion of Kryptonian lore and the grim aesthetic of a machine cult creates a villain that is not just a physical threat, but a philosophical and emotional nightmare for Superman. It's a conflict that would leave permanent scars. What do you guys think of this concept? How do you think Superman would handle this impossible choice? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. This was a really fun one to break down. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring that bell so you don't miss our next journey into the wild world of what-ifs. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But into this galaxy of unending conflict, a new star has appeared. A being of impossible power, whose arrival sent ripples through the very fabric of the Imperium. To the common man, He is a myth, a whispered legend. But to the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, he is something far, far more. Te Kalim, the unbound machine spirit. Imagine this scene, deep within the sanctums of a forge world, under the cold, analytical glow of data screens and servo skulls. The magi of the Adeptus Mechanicus gather. Before them, laid out on slabs of sanctified adamantium, are fragments of alien technology salvaged from the void, shards of a crystalline ship, alloys that defy known physics, and at the center of it all, microscopic samples of biological matter, cells taken from the being they now know as To the Mechanicus, this is not just alien biology. This is divine revelation. They pore over his cellular structure with the reverence usually reserved for the holiest of relics. His ability to absorb solar radiation and convert it into near limitless energy. They see it as a perfect, living plasma reactor, a biological engine of unparalleled efficiency. His invulnerability, a living ceramite, a molecular structure so dense and perfectly ordered it could only be the work of the omniscient. His strength, capable of moving planets. This is the ultimate expression of the machine god's power, a motive force made flesh. The tech priests chant litanies. As they analyze the data, they see his genetic code, not as DNA, but as a sacred standard template, construct an Sentisi, fragment of biological design, the most sought after prize in the galaxy, a blueprint from the dark age of technology, now incarnated in a single being. They believe Khalil is not a man, but a living miracle, proof that the machine god's designs extend beyond metal and circuitry into the very essence of life itself. He is the ultimate fusion of the biological and the mechanical, a walking, talking testament to divine engineering. They worship his cells, seeing in them the promise of a new age of technological supremacy for mankind. This quiet, obsessive reverence, however, is about to be shattered. The cog-toothed maw of war is never far in the 41st millennium. From the starless void, a new horror emerges. The Collectorate, a cybernetic race of insatiable data harvesters, descends upon the forge world of Alth. Their goal is simple and absolute: to assimilate all technology, all knowledge, and all life into their gestalt consciousness. Their fleets blot out the suns. Their armies of chrome and wire march relentlessly across the planet's metallic plains. Althros is a jewel of the Mechanicus, a world dedicated to the production of the Imperium's war machines. Its vast manufactorums churn out tanks, titans, and weapons for 100 different war zones. The loss of Althros would be a catastrophic blow. The Skittery legions, the cybernetic soldiers of the machine god, rise to meet the threat. Lusvius stitches the smog-choked sky, and the ground trembles with the tread of war engines. The defenders of Althros fight with cold, calculated fury. Their augmetic limbs worry, their Binheric prayers rising in a cacophony of static and devotion. But the Collectorate are a tide of steel that cannot be easily stemmed. They adapt, they learn, they consume. For every machine they destroy, they absorb its data, turning the Imperium's own technology against it. The Skittery are pushed back, their lines buckling under the sheer weight of the invasion. The Fabricator General of Althros sends a desperate, coded plea across the warp, a prayer to the motive force for a miracle. And a miracle answers. He arrives, not with the thunder of a drop pod, but as a silent, crimson and blue streak against the gray, polluted sky. Khalil he had been observing, studying this strange, dogmatic faction of humanity from afar. He saw their devotion, their brilliance, but also their cold, often cruel, logic. Yet, when the Collectorate attacked, he saw not just machines fighting machines, but a civilization, a people, fighting for their very existence. And he could not stand by. His first act is to intercept a volley of plasma torpedoes aimed at the heart of the primary forge spire. He meets them in midair, the ensuing explosions washing over his invulnerable form like a harmless wave. On the ground, the tech priests and Skittery pause, their optical sensors struggling to process what they are witnessing. Their unbound machine spirit, their living Sentisi, has manifested. He descends to the battlefield. a stark contrast of vibrant color against the rust and grime of the Forge world. The Collectorate drones turned their weapons on him, 1,000 beams of energy converging on a single point. He doesn't even flinch. With a surge of motion too fast for augmetic eyes to track, he dismantles the first wave. He tears through their ranks, not with brutality, but with surgical precision. He disarms their weapon systems, disables their motive units, and tears their command nodes apart with his bare hands. For the first time, the Adeptus Mechanicus fights side by side with the subject of their worship. A cohort of skittery rangers, pinned down by heavy fire, find their enemy's position suddenly and inexplicably silenced. They look up to see Khalil Flutin. Abube, a massive Collectorate war construct held effortlessly in his hands, its main cannon twisted into a knot of useless metal. He gives them a slight nod, a gesture of reassurance that is utterly alien to their combat protocols, yet universally understood. The tech priests watch from their command pulpits, their logic engines running hot. The data is irrefutable. The being's combat effectiveness exceeds all projections. They begin to coordinate with him, feeding him tactical data on enemy weaknesses, priority targets, and structural vulnerabilities. Amagos Biologis, his voice trembling with ecstatic revelation, broadcasts on an open channel. All units coordinate with designation the Omnissiah provides. The motive force is with us. Kaliel responds, his voice calm and clear over their comes. A stark contrast to the static and Ben Herikant. Direct me to their command vessel. We end this now. The battle for Althros rages on, but the tide has turned. The alliance is strange, almost unthinkable. The cold, calculating dogma of the Mechanicus, and the unwavering, compassionate power of the Man of Steel. They are fighting for different reasons, the Mechanicus for their god and their technology, Kaliel for the preservation of life. But on the soot-stained plains of Althros, under the shadow of the great forges, their goals have aligned. For the first time, the Imperium and Kal-El fight as one, and the galaxy will never be the same. The unbound machine spirit has been unleashed, not as a subject of study, but as an ally. And for the enemies of mankind, a new and terrifying fear is born. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into a fascinating what-if scenario. If you enjoyed seeing the Man of Steel clash with the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic crossovers. Let us know in the comments what other Titanic team-ups you'd love to see. The fall of the Hydra sector wasn't marked by a single battle, but by a sound. It was the sound of reality itself tearing apart. The Collectorate's relentless advance had pushed the sector's delicate balance to its absolute limit, weakening the veil between our world and the image. And then it broke. They called it the warp storm of Hydra's fall, a maelstrom of raw, untamed chaos where the very laws of physics were rewritten in a language of madness. When the warp opened, even light itself seemed to scream in agony. Imagina hurricane, but instead of wind and rain, it's made of pure emotion, of raw psychic energy. This storm didn't just level cities, it warped them. Metal and flesh, machine and demon, man and monster, they all began to merge into grotesque, nightmarish amalgams. The sky bled colors that had no name, and the ground churned like a living, breathing entity. Soldiers of the Imperial Guard, men and women of iron will, found their armor fusing with their body. Their thoughts invaded by whispering demons, promising power, release, and eternal damnation. The Collectorate's own biomechanical horrors were not immune. They were twisted into even more terrifying forms, their cold logic replaced by the shrieking hunger of the warp. It was a symphony of chaos, and the entire sector was its unwilling orchestra. In the heart of this cosmic tempest, a single point of light refused to be extinguished. Kal-El, the strange visitor from a dead world, had stood as a bastion against the Collectorate's tide. He was a symbol of hope in a galaxy that had long forgotten the meaning of the word. But hope is a fragile thing in the face of the warp. As the storm raged, he saw the unimaginable suffering, the Astartes succumbing to mutations, the civilians transformed into gibbering spawn. He saw the very fabric of existence being unmade. His physical strength, his speed, his invulnerability. They were like trying to punch a tsunami. They were useless against an enemy that attacked the soul itself. But Khalil possessed one power that even the ruinous powers had not accounted for. The fire of a yellow sun, burning within his very cells. He wasn't just powered by the sun. In a way, he was a sun, a living star of order and life, in a galaxy drowning in darkness. As the demonic legions poured from the rift, their forms coalescing from raw ectoplasm and psychic filth, he knew what he had to do. It was a choice born of desperation, a gamble that would cost him more than he could ever comprehend. He closed his eyes, not in prayer, but in focus. He reached deep within himself, past the man, past the alien, to the core of his being, the stellar furnace that gave him his strength. And he let it out. It began as a glimmer, a single, pure point of golden light in the swirling purple and green madness of the storm. Then it expanded. Khalil became a living sun. He didn't just emit light. He, was light. He didn't just radiate heat. He, was a nuclear fire. The chaotic energies of the warp, which feed on despair and hatred, recoiled from this incandescent display of pure, unadulterated hope in life. The light was anathema to them. It was the antithesis of everything they represented. It wasn't just a physical burning. It was a spiritual one. The demons shrieked as their ethereal forms were seared and unmade by a power they could uncorrupt or consume. The reality-warping energies of the storm met their match. Where Khalil's light touched, the laws of physics reasserted themselves with violent force. The twisted amalgamations of flesh and metal were immolated, reduced to ash. The ground solidified. The bleeding sky was cauterized. The unholy colors bleached back to the cold, familiar black of space. He was a cleansing fire, a solar flare burning away the infection of chaos. He pushed against the storm, a one-man bulwark against the tide of unreality. The collectorate forces, caught between the demonic surge and this new, terrifying star, were vaporized. Their ships, their soldiers, their monstrous creation soul, were scoured from existence. With a final, monumental effort, a silent scream of pure will, Khalil pushed the inferno of his soul outward. The heart of the warp storm buckled. The rift, the gaping wound in reality, began to close. The demons were dragged back into their hellish dimension, their howls of rage and pain echoing as the gateway sealed shut. For a moment, a single, brilliant star shone where the Hydra sector had been, a beacon of defiance in the void. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, the light receded, collapsing back into the man at its center. The storm was gone. Silence fell upon the ravaged sector. But victory, in the 41st millennium, is never without a price. As the last embers of his stellar fire cooled, Khalil felt a new kind of coldness, one that had nothing to do with the vacuum of space. He had burned reality itself to drive back the invaders, but in doing so, he had also burned a part of himself. He had poured out not just energy, but a piece of his essence, his very soul. In a place where that bright, unwavering hope had once lived, there was now a void, a hole. He looked at his hands, no longer glowing, and felt a profound emptiness. He had saved the sector, but he had torn a hole in his own soul. And in the grim darkness of the far future, there are things far worse than demons that are drawn to such an empty space. The battle for Hydra's fall was over, but the war for Khalil's soul had just begun. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the grim darkness of the far future. What do you think will happen to Superman now? What horrors might be drawn to that emptiness inside him? Let me know your theories down in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more tales from this twisted universe. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war. Amidst this eternal conflict, there are whispers, tales of beings and events that defy the harsh realities of the galaxy. Today, we delve into one such story, a crossover of epic proportions, a clash of universes where the steel-clad faith of a gray knight meets the unwavering hope of a man of steel. This is the story of Chaplain Astervalen and the anomaly known as Cal. Our tale begins on a world teetering on the brink of damnation, a planet designated simply as T9. Imperial records spoke of a rapid, almost miraculous societal advancement, a utopia blooming in a galaxy of thorns. But to the Ordo Malleus, such perfection is the deepest stain of heresy, a clear sign of warp corruption. And so, a single gray knight, a warrior whose soul is a fortress against the demonic, is Chaplain Astervalen is Terminator, armor thrumming with righteous power, his Crozius Arcanum, crackling with energies that can unmake reality, is sent to purge the anomaly. His mission, to find the source of this hope and extinguish it. As Chaplain Valen teleports onto the surface of T9, he is met not with the expected cacophony of madness or the twisted visages of the corrupted. Instead, he finds a world of vibrant life, clean cities, and people whose eyes shine not with fanatical zeal, but with genuine contentment. This profound peace is more unsettling to the chaplain than any battlefield. He expects deceit, a beautiful lie spun by the great deceiver, Tazine. His omniscience probes the environment, searching for the taint, the subtle wrongness that always accompanies the archenemy. He finds nothing but a pervasive aura of ... goodness. His search leads him to the heart of this world's tranquility, a figure silhouetted against the setting sun, clad in blue and red, a symbol of a stylized S on his chest. This being is Khalil, known to his people as Superman. Valen raises his storm bolter, the psychic primers on his blessed bolts ready to ignite. He sees the target, the Xenos, the source of this impossible peace. He is the anomaly that must be ended. In the Emperor's name, Valen's voice booms through his vox grill. Your existence is heresy. Prepare for judgment. Khalil turns, his expression not of fear, but of concern. He sees the towering, silver-armored warrior, a walking cathedral of war, and senses no malice, only a profound, ordinate duty. I don't want to fight you, Superman says, his voice calm and steady. This world is under my protection. Its people have chosen a path of peace. Why would your emperor condemn that? Valen scoffs. Peace. There is no peace, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods. Your peace is a lie. A siren song luring this world to its doom. The Grey Knight charges, his Crozius Arcanum blazing. The clash is monumental. The power mole, capable of shattering demon-forged steel, strikes Superman's chest and recoils, the shockwave flattening the surrounding landscape. Superman holds his ground, absorbing the blow without flinching. He sees the fury in Valen's eyes, but also a deep-seated sorrow. This isn't a monster. This is a soldier trapped in a nightmare. Instead of retaliating with his full strength, Superman chooses to endure, to demonstrate that his power is not a weapon of conquest, but a shield for the innocent. He evades, he parries, he redirects the chaplain's relentless assault, all while trying to reason with him. As they fight, Valen unleashes his psychic might, lances of pure sanctified energy meant to scour the soul. He assails Khalil's mind with visions of galactic war, of untold horrors, of the very demons he has sworn to fight. He expects the Xenos to break, to reveal its true, monstrous form. But Khalil's mind is a bastion of its own. It is not shielded by arcane wards or psychic discipline, but by an unshakable belief in the good of others. He meets Valen's psychic onslaught not with but with his own memories, a kindly couple on a Kansas farm, the smiling faces of people he saved, a fundamental, unyielding faith in hope itself. For the first time in his centuries of service, Chaplain Valen hesitates. He witnesses not corruption, but faith untainted by fear, a purity he thought only the Emperor possessed. This Khalil, this anomaly, fights not for glory or power, but for an ideal that the Imperium has long forgotten. He whispers the Grey Knight credo, "We are the hammer." But the words feel hollow. Khalil responds, "Hope is not a weakness. It's the strongest thing in the universe." In that moment of doubt, the true enemy reveals itself. The sky tears open, bleeding colors that have no name. Reality warps, and from the breach emerges a being of pure nightmare, a lord of change. Adema, prince of Tzinch, its multifaceted eyes glittering with cunning and ancient malice. The demon, Kairos, the oracle of Tzinch, cackles, its voice a symphony of lies and broken futures. Such a beautiful paradox, it shrieks. The faithful warrior finds his faith shaken, and the hopeful fool confronts a hopeless truth. It was I who guided you here, little knight. I who nurtured this world's perfect peace, all to orchestrate this perfect moment of despair. The demon prince reveals its plan. It had shielded the world from the gaze of other chaos gods, subtly manipulating events to create a beacon of hope so bright that its eventual extinguishment would cast the entire sector into a state of absolute soul-crushing despair, a worthy offering to the changer of ways. The people of T9 begin to scream as their reality twists, their peaceful world becoming a canvas for Tzinch's mad artistry. Valen turns from Superman, his purpose renewed, his hatred for the demonic overriding all else. Your deceptions end now, creature of the warp. He roars, reigniting his Crozius. But the demon prince is an embodiment of destiny itself, its power far beyond that of a lone grey knight. It waves a clawed hand, and fate itself unravels. Valen's blessed armor begins to buckle, his psychic wards shattering like glass. The demon shows him a future where he fails, where the Imperium falls, where all his sacrifices mean nothing. Despair, cold and absolute, begins to creep into the chaplain's soul. But then, a hand rests on his shoulder. Pauldron, it is Superman. He is trying to make you afraid, Kal-El says, his eyes blazing with solar energy. He feeds on your despair, but we are not what he says we are. We are not defined by his prophecies. We choose our own destiny in that moment. Something extraordinary happens. Superman's unwavering hope, his sheer belief in a better tomorrow, acts as a psychic shield. It's anathema to the demon's power, a frequency of pure faith that Tzinchan energies cannot corrupt. Valen feels the crushing weight of despair lift, replaced by a fire he has not felt in centuries. Hopis sa contagion, Valen says, his voice now clear and strong, and I am its carrier. He looks at the alien, this impossible being of hope, and sees not a Xenos to be purged, but an ally. Together, Valen declares, leveling his storm bolter at the demon prince. Superman nods. Together. What follows is a battle for the soul of a world. The Grey Knight's righteous fury, a focused point of destruction, is now amplified by the boundless hope of the Man of Steel. Valen's combats and sanctified bolts punch holes in the demon's sorcery, while Superman's raw power shatters its physical form. Kiras, the embodiment of twisted fate, cannot comprehend this alliance. It had predicted every possible outcome, every move, every betrayal, but it could not predict this. The union of grim, dutiful faith and bright, defiant hope. Valen's hammer strikes with the weight of humanity's will to survive, while Superman's fists strike with the force of an ideal that will never die. The Demon Prince, for all its power over destiny, finds itself fighting against something it cannot manipulate. A choice, the choice to stand together, to fight, and to hope, against all odds. In a final, cataclysmic explosion of psychic energy and solar fire, the Demon Prince is broken, its essence banished back to the madness of the image. The tear in reality seals, and the world of T9, though scarred, is saved. Silence descends. Astrovalan stands amidst the quiet aftermath, looking at Kal-El. His mission was to destroy the anomaly. But he now understands the truth. The anomaly was not Superman. It was the flicker of hope he represented in a hopeless galaxy. The Imperial records will state that the anomaly has been purged, Valen says. His duty is a Grey Knight forcing a necessary lie. But know this, Kal-El. Your fight is righteous. May your hope never fade. With a final nod of respect, Chaplain Aster Valen activates his teleporter, vanishing in a shimmer of blue light, leaving the Man of Steel to stand guard over his peaceful world, a silent testament to the fact that even in the darkest millennium a single star of hope can still shine. What an incredible story, a blend of the grimdark and the hopeful, showing that even the most disparate heroes can find common ground in the fight against darkness. What do you think of this crossover? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this dive into the lore, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next journey into the vast and amazing worlds of fiction. The journey to the throne world was unlike any Khalil had ever undertaken. 4 weeks. The Grey Knight's strike cruiser, the Sword of Titan *, sliced through the maddening chaos of the warp. Who could cross galaxies in a breath, was now a passenger, confined within blessed steel and sacred wards. The knights themselves were a silent enigma, their psychic presence a constant, disciplined hum in the back of his mind. They spoke little, their silver armor gleaming under the ship's cold lumen, their eyes, when visible, holding a weight of centuries of unending war. Kalos spent his time observing. He watched astropaths, their bodies frail and scarred, scream messages across the void. He saw servitors, once human, now little more than biological machines, go about their endless tasks. He felt the ship's Geller field flicker, a fragile bubble of reality holding back a tide of pure insanity that clawed and whispered from beyond the veil. He could hear the souls of the damned, a discordant symphony of rage and despair that made his own. So full of hope, feel like a solitary, defiant note. Brother Captain Stern, the leader of his escort, would occasionally speak with him. The conversations were terse, more like interrogations. Stern wanted to understand the source of Khalil's power. It comes from the sun, Khalil would explain, from yellow stars. Stern would nod, his helmeted face unreadable. A gift from a star, he'd murmur, the concept both alien and yet strangely familiar in a galaxy where power was often granted by terrible patrons. Our gifts come from faith and sacrifice. Across the vast and fractured Imperium, whispers traveled faster than any fleet. On hive worlds choked with smog and humanity, tales were told of a star child, an angel in blue and red who could shatter mountains and move faster than thought. On forge worlds, the tech priests debated the nature of his form, a perfect biological engine that required no augmentation. In the gilded halls of distant sector lords, they spoke of a new power in the galaxy, a potential messiah or a terrifying new threat. He shone, they said, with an inner light that required no prayer, no worship, a light that was his alone. This was the most damnable heresy of all. Was he a lost Primarch, a weapon from the dark age of technology, or something far, far worse, a demon of hope, a lie given flesh to lead humanity astray? The Inquisition's black ships changed course, their holds filled with psychers and witch hunters, all desperate to find the truth of the being called Finally, the Sword of Titan translated back into real, and there it was. Terra. Holy Terra, the cradle of humanity, and now its gilded tomb. A world-spanning city of gold and stone, its skies thick with orbital plates, defense platforms, and the ceaseless traffic of void-faring cathedrals. The sheer psychic weight of the place was staggering, 1 trillion souls on the planet below, and the echo of trillions more across 10,000 years. It was a roar of prayer, of duty, of suffering, and unwavering, desperate faith. It pressed in on Kal-El, a pressure greater than any ocean's depth. For the first time since leaving Krypton, he felt small. They bypassed the orbital stations. Their Grey Knight vessel granted passage where others would wait for centuries. They descended through layers of atmosphere thick with the incense of 1,000,000 cathedrals, and the exhaust of manufactorums that had not ceased production in millennia. They flew over oceans of humanity, seas of people packed into cityscapes so vast they blotted out the ground. The Imperial Palace was not a building. It was a continent, a mountain range of spires and buttresses that clawed at the sky, each one a monument to an age of glory and an eternity of war. At its heart, the Sanctum Imperialis. The destination, they landed in a courtyard so vast, Khalil could have fit Metropolis within its walls. Thousands of custodies, the Emperor's personal guard, stood like golden statues, their guardian spears held at a perfect, silent attention. Their gaze was heavy, ancient, and utterly uncompromising. They were demigods, engineered to be the pinnacle of humanity, and next to them, even the formidable Grey Knights seemed lesser. Stern removed his helmet. His face was weathered, scarred, but his eyes held a profound reverence. "From here, you walk alone." Khalil nodded. He walked forward, his blue suit a stark contrast to the sea of gold and crimson. The massive gates of the sanctum opened before him. Groaning with the weight of ages, he stepped into the darkness beyond. The passage was long, lined with banners depicting battles and heroes lost to time. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of ozone and something else. Something ancient and powerful and terrible. Undinged pine. The psychic pressure intensified with every step. A billion souls crying out for their savior, their master. It was a force that could pulverize minds. A psychic hurricane centered on a single, silent point. Khalil braced himself, his own indomitable will a shield against the storm. He entered the golden hall. The sanctum sank, and his breath caught in his throat. The chamber was a cavern of impossible scale, its ceiling lost in shadow. It was filled with arcane machinery, a web of gold and iron cables as thick as trees, all converging on the hall's center. And there sat the golden throne. It was a mountain of psychoactive technology and life support systems, a gargantuan, intricate device of torment and preservation. And upon it, barely visible amidst the flickering energies and conduits, was a figure, a corpse, withered and broken, sustained by soul-binding technologies that defied comprehension. But the body was just a shell. Khalil looked past the flesh, past the machine. He used his vision to see not just matter, but energy, spirit, soul. And he saw him. He saw a mind that spanned the galaxy, a consciousness of such titanic power that it held back the ravenous gods of the warp with sheer, unyielding will. He saw 10,000 years of unceasing vigilance, of unimaginable agony, of a father watching his children fight and die in a galaxy that wanted only to consume them. He felt a sorrow so profound it dwarfed any he had ever known. He felt a resolve so absolute it was the bedrock upon which all of humanity stood. This was not a king on a throne. This was a lighthouse in an infinite storm, a god in a prison of his own making, the emperor of mankind. In that moment, Khalil understood. He saw the terrible, necessary price of humanity's survival. He saw the sacrifice that made his own seem small. He saw a being who had given not just his life, but his very soul, his chance at peace, his dream of a better future, all to buy his species one more day. And for the first time in his life, for the first time since he had learned to fly and stand as a symbol of hope, Khalil, the last son of Krypton, knelt. He knelt before the silent, suffering master of mankind, not in submission, but in awe, in respect, and in a shared, terrible burden of being a protector. In the silence of the Golden Hall, a psychic voice, ancient and powerful, yet thin as dust, echoed not in the air, but in the core of his soul. "Who are you?" Thank you all so much for watching. This series is a passion project, and your support means the world. If you enjoyed this chapter of the story, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments what you think will happen next when Superman finally speaks to the Emperor. In the echoing silence of the Golden Throne Room, two titans of humanity faced each other. One, a god in golden armor, a psychic beacon holding back the tide of damnation. The other, an alien raised as a man, a symbol of hope from a world long dead. The Emperor of mankind, his voice a chorus of millennia, resonated not just in Khalil's ears, but in the very core of his soul. "You are an anomaly, son of Krypton," the Emperor began, his words cutting through the psychic miasma of the throne room. "A power that rivals the Primarchs of old, a spirit untainted by the galaxy's rot. You stand at a precipice, a crossroads of destiny forged in the heart of my Imperium." Superman, his cape a splash of defiant red in the Gothic gloom, stood unbowed. He had seen empires rise and fall, faced gods and monsters. But this was different. This was a being who held an entire species on his shoulders, a father to trillions, locked in an eternal, silent war. I see 3 paths laid before you, Khalil. The Emperor's voice boomed, each word a command that could shatter worlds. 3 destinies, you might claim. The first, he declared, and a vision flooded Superman's mind. He saw himself wreathed in golden light, a being of pure power, a demigod standing beside the Emperor. Stars were his playthings, fleets his heralds. He would be a second sun for the Imperium, a rival to the Astronomican's light, a beacon of raw, untamed might that would burn away the shadows of the galaxy. To ascend, to become a god among men, his power unshackled and sanctified. The temptation was immense, the ability to end all wars, to enforce a perfect peace. But at what cost? He saw the adoration, the fear, the worship. He would no longer be a man, but an icon, a distant, terrifying star. The second path, the Emperor continued, the vision shifting. Now, Khalil saw himself clad in the cetamite of a space marine, but he was a sanctioned weapon, a living embodiment of the Imperium's wrath. He would be the tip of the spear, the ultimate enforcer, deployed to the most hellish war. He would shatter, Orc, WAAG, break the back of Tyranid Hive fleets, and drive the forces of chaos screaming back into the warp. He would be a champion, a hero, a celebrated instrument of the Emperor's will. He would save lives, billions of them, but he would be a weapon, forever bound to the brutal logic of war. His every action dictated by the grim necessities of a galaxy that knew only conflict. Khalil felt the weight of these choices, to be a god or to be a sword. Both paths offered a way to use his strength to protect, but both felt incomplete. They were the Emperor's solutions, born of a desperate age. They were not his. And the third path, double quotes. The Emperor's voice soft, tinged with something akin to sorrow. Or perhaps, respect. It is the path of ultimate sacrifice. You could walk into the eye of terror itself, into the very heart of the warp. Your nature, your incorruptible soul, your sheer, untainted power. You could become a cleansing fire in that realm of madness, a beacon of pure reality in an ocean of impossibility. You might not cleanse it entirely, but you could create a sanctuary, a bastion of order within the chaos, buying humanity millennia of reprieve. But this path, it would consume you. You would be alone, fighting an eternal, unwinnable war in a realm where logic and hope die. You would be a martyr, a silent saint whose name might never be known. Superman looked past the gilded shell of the Emperor, past the machinery and the psychic might. He saw the flicker of the man within, the being who had made an impossible choice 10,000 years ago. He saw the sacrifice, the eternal vigil, and in that moment, Khalil understood. He wasn't a god to be worshipped, nor a weapon to be wielded. He was raised by farmers in Kansas. He was taught to help, to protect, to serve, not through command, not through conquest, but by standing with humanity, not above it. You offer me the choice to rule, to rebel in my own way by becoming a weapon, or to serve through sacrifice, Khalil said, his voice clear and steady, a stark contrast to the Emperor's psychic chorus. I have always made my choice. I don't seek to rule. I am not a weapon to be pointed, and my place is not in the shadows, fighting a war no one can see. He took a step forward, his blue eyes meeting the blinding psychic gaze of the Emperor. I choose the path of service, but not as a martyr in the warp. I will serve here, in the light, among your people. I will not be a god they worship or a sword they fear. I will be a shield. A silence fell, heavier than any before. The Emperor contemplated the alien's declaration, a shield. Not a weapon of conquest, but an aegis of protection, a symbol not of the Imperium's might, but of its endurance, an embodiment of the very thing the Emperor had once hoped humanity could be. I will stand on the walls of worlds besieged, Superman declared, his voice filled with unwavering resolve. I will catch the first blow, so that others may strike the last. I will be the guardian for the common man, the soldier, the child. I will show them that even in the darkest night, Terre is open. I will not burn the galaxy in your name, nor will I die for it in secret. I will live for it. I will live for them. I will be the shield of the Imperium. In the depths of the Golden Throne, a thought that had not been felt for 10,000 years flickered. It was not a grand strategic calculation, nor a prophecy of a dark future. It was a single, unfamiliar feeling, echoing in the void. It was hope. The Emperor had offered Khalil 3 pads born of grim necessity, and the Kryptonian had forged a 4th, born of simply incorruptible virtue. A new piece was on the board, one that would change the grim, dark future forever. What do you think of Superman's choice? Was it the right one for the 41st millennium? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I love reading your theories and ideas on these crossovers. If you enjoyed this journey into what could be, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more tales from the far future. Your support means the world and helps us continue exploring these epic The year is 40,000. In an age of unimaginable darkness, where faith is a weapon and hope is all but forgotten, a legend from a long-dead world has been He is no longer the simple farm boy from Smallville, nor the shining beacon of Metropolis. The blue and red, the iconic S, have been replaced by the gilded ceramite of the Imperium, his chest now bearing the double-headed Aquila. He is the shield of the Imperium, the Emperor's chosen protector, a living saint whose power holds back the tide of Xenos, heretics, and demons. This is the story of Khalil, in the grim darkness of the far future. Before the 41st millennium, before the long night, a small craft, a relic of a technologically advanced but doomed civilization, drifted through the It was a vessel of hope, carrying the last son of a world called Krypton. But the warp is a treacherous ocean, and time flows differently within its chaotic currents. The pod did not land in a Kansas cornfield in the 20th century. Instead, it was found thousands of years later, crashing upon the sacred soil of Holy Terra itself, the throne world of humanity. Discovered by the Adeptus Custodes, the golden guardians of the Emperor, the infant within was a biological anomaly. He absorbed the light of Sol, our sun, and manifested strength that defied all known human limits. He could fly, his eyes could emit beams of pure energy, and his resilience was greater than that of Adam. To the mechanistically minded Adeptus Mechanicus, he was a miracle of lost art. To the pious ecclesiarchy, he was a gift from the God Emperor himself. Raised within the gilded halls of the imperial palace, the child, named Khalil, was taught not of truth, justice, and the American way, but of duty, sacrifice, and loyalty to the master of mankind. He saw the Golden Throne, the silent, psychic agony of the Emperor holding the Imperium together. He learned of the Great Crusade, the Horus Heresy, and the 10,000 years of ceaseless war that followed. His alien heart, so full of compassion, ached for this suffering humanity. He saw not a tyrannical regime, but a species on the brink of extinction, fighting with everything it had to survive another day. His once alien faith, a belief in the inherent goodness of all, was tempered in the fires of imperial dogma. It did not break, it was reforged. The hope he represented was no longer for a bright, optimistic future, but for the simple, desperate hope of survival. His belief in the Emperor was not blind. It was born from witnessing the psychic bulwark the Emperor provided against the horrors of the warp. He saw the Emperor not as a tyrant, but as the ultimate martyr, a father figure suffering eternally for his children. And so, Khalil pledged his impossible strength to this cause. He would be the shield for a humanity that had long forgotten how to be anything but soldiers. Now, clad in blessed ceramite armor, he is a figure of awe on the battlefield. Where he walks, the tide of chaos recedes. His heat vision, no longer just a tool, becomes the Emperor's cleansing fire, purging demons from the material realm. He can lift fallen titans, hold collapsing fortress walls, and move faster than a bolter shell. The Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, see him, and their morale soars. They charge into battle with renewed faith, for a living miracle fights alongside them. Space Marines, the Angels of Death, nod in solemn respect, acknowledging a power that complements their own martial prowess. He is the ultimate reinforcement, the final line of defense. He now leads the defense of the Segmentum Solar, the heart of the Imperium. From the war-torn planets orbiting the Sol system to the distant star forts, standing sentinel, his presence is a beacon. He single-handedly shatters Orc. WAAAG etches his flight a golden streak against a green tide. He confronts the silent menace of the Necrons, his strength a match for their living metal bodies. He descends into the swirling madness of the Eye of Terror, a lone warrior holding back legions of chaos, undivided, his incorruptible soul a burning anathema to the demonic. He is not a general in the traditional sense. He is a force of nature, a living embodiment of the Emperor's will made manifest. Worlds on the brink of collapse are sustained by his intervention. When a hive-world sun is being devoured by a tyrannid bioship, Khalil flies into the stellar furnace. His Kryptonian physiology allowing him to battle the beast within the star itself, reigniting it with a pulse of his own energy. When a four-inch world is besieged by the Iron Warriors, he becomes an unbreakable wall, his body absorbing artillery bombardments that would level mountains, giving the Adeptus Mechanicus time to enact their. His legend spreads through Vox Data and whispered prayers across 1,000,000 worlds. He is the saint of the Red Sun, the Golden Guardian, the Emperor's fury. But this transformation has come at a cost. The Khalil, who believed in second chances, who would always seek a peaceful solution, has been forced to adapt. In the 41st millennium, there is no room for such mercy. He has learned the hard lesson that some evils cannot be redeemed, only purged. The weight of his actions is a heavy burden, a stark contrast to the simple morality of his lost heritage. Each life he is forced to take, even that of the most monstrous heretic, leaves a small scar on his soul. Yet, deep within the Ceramite and the righteous fury, the light of Krypton has not been extinguished. It has changed. It is no longer a memory of a peaceful, scientific society, but a symbol of what could be, a spark of hope, reborn in this darkest of ages. He remembers the lessons of his Kryptonian father, Jorella warnings against stagnation, the belief in potential. He sees that same potential in humanity, buried under layers of fear and dogma. His fight is not just for survival, but for the chance, however slim, that one day humanity might be able to build something better than this eternal war. He doesn't fight to restore a lost ideal. He fights to protect the flickering candle of humanity's existence, hoping it might one day grow into a flame bright enough to push back the dark. The S on his chest may be gone, replaced by the Aquila, but its meaning, hope, endures. It is a hope tempered by grim reality, a hope that acknowledges the necessity of sacrifice. In the grim darkness of the far future, the last son of Krypton has become the first shield of man. He is their ultimate protector, their living saint, and perhaps their last, best hope for a new dawn. Thank you so much for watching.